What's up guys, Tone Loke here. I'm talking about Dishonored 2 today. I got a lot of requests to kind of share my thoughts on Dishonored 2, so what the hell, let's just throw it all down on paper today and talk about Dishonored 2. You know, I just can't get over how bad the launch of Dishonored 2 was. To this day, it's something that it's kind of becoming more prevalent in my eyes as I continue to witness games come and go. Sadly, in this era of gaming, there is such a high turnaround for games that deadlines become just set in stone, regardless if a game is ready or not. It often leads to bad releases and a company's player base feeling betrayed and alienated by what they can only see as cash grabbing. Dishonored 2 was one of the best games to have a pretty horrible launch. There's a lot of reasons for shitty day one launches. Pressure from the publisher, lack of funds to continue development, so they gotta rush it, an inexperienced developer, external factors like rushing to meet deadlines for movies or TV add-ins. The list is really endless. In Dishonored 2's case, it was technically rushed and just not ready. So why does this happen so often? I remember when I was younger, and companies, they seemed not to care for the seething crowds of angry nerds or the impatient yet vicious critics and the wants and needs of those holding interest in the company, not as much as today. In the past, if a game wasn't done or it didn't feel polished, it was postponed. This is happening less and less these days, and instead, more and more games are launching in terrible untested states. Pre-orders feel like purchasing beta keys. New games sometimes take weeks or months to become playable. When a game launches with a good port, it's newsworthy, simply because it's in good working order. Is that not the biggest oversight to our industry? And to the masses that have underperforming rigs, those issues hit them harder than everyone else. It can build resentment and leave gamers with a bad taste in their mouth. After all, people want a game to work at release. No questions asked. The impatience is what is lying waste to great opportunities for games and can even drive a great game straight to the top of the Steam refund purgatory. It happened to Dishonored 2, a game that I was personally very excited for. It had a huge following and an incredible fan base patiently waiting for it to drop. The original Dishonored wasn't your traditional AAA game, remember that. It was a niche, yet unique and polished game. It drew people to it because it was unpretentious, but also because it was ready when it hit the market. Dishonored 2 was not. Upon its release, I was not even able to launch the game, past the myriad of company logos, which I can only compare to sitting through 15 minutes of movie trailers at the theaters. As a loyal fan of Dishonored 1, I sat patiently though. I placed myself on the beta patch auto updates on Steam and I waited. Kept my eyes on the patch notes every single week and waited. Then one day it happened. 7 weeks later, my patience and trust in the fact that they could fix the issues plaguing the game had finally paid off. I could actually launch the game. It was still buggy in some areas and the performance sucked, but I could actually play. After all of that hassle, and I enjoyed myself. How ironic that Dishonored 2, a pretty great game I may add, had such a roadblock to entry in front of it, a big red sign saying, "I'm great, but you can't play me because they rushed me and I don't work." It wasn't a perfect game, of course not, but there were so many great things about Dishonored 2 that deserve praise. Combat and development of the core game mechanics, expanded level design, and better AI with fun powers to play with. I also felt that the addition of the rune and bone charm crafting was a great way to add variation to gameplay, that the addition of Emily and the new powers were all very satisfying, and I liked combining charms with certain powers to create actual character builds, Possession Stealth, Corvo Infestation, the Doppelganger build, Stealth Shadow Walking, etc. Now, people do argue that the story of Dishonored 2 does feel flat. Personally, the story for me was lackluster in some regards. I did play through the original Dishonored and its DLC very thoroughly. This means I read all the books, the journals, I searched every corner, talked to every person, and I used the heart on everyone I could. If you didn't play the DLC for Dishonored, then you will not understand everything about the story in Dishonored 2. There are some things that try to help the player catch up, but it will not compare to that of actually playing those stories. Those that played the DLC will be rewarded with the knowledge of the characters and the plot, and it all just felt really great. Unlike a lot of games where the DLC feels just almost completely irrelevant to the story and contributes very little to advancing anything, the developers included and expanded upon the faces we saw in the Knife of Dunwall and the Brigmore Witches, as if the developers understood what a DLC component is supposed to add to an already well-crafted game. Through my first playthrough of Dishonored 2, I did the same thing. I did my stealth run, and just like the first game, it felt rewarding and the effects on the world were noticeable and gave me satisfaction to the end. My second playthrough, I just basically killed everything I saw, and there was a very noticeable difference. In High Chaos, the heart blatantly says some very depressing shit. If you played the first game, you know who the heart belongs to, and with the continued use of it through Dishonored 2, you can still feel that same connection to the first game. If you were paying attention through your playthrough, there are many nods like this to the first Dishonored game throughout Dishonored 2, and it just really binds them together in a really nice way. Now in terms of straight numbers, Dishonored 2 was the 4th best-selling game in its first week of release, but the launch week sales dropped 38% when compared to the original game. And on the global PC front, Dishonored 2 has more than 700,000 Steam owners, however, only 1,000 to 2,000 concurrent daily players on average. Traditionally for AAA games, we do see more sales overall, and a higher average player count than this, just across the board. Sadly, I think that the refunds, the low player counts, and the lack of reviews really forced people to jump ship during the launch of Dishonored 2, like mice from a burning trade barge, leaving this great piece of art at the bottom of the ocean. I think that the standalone DLC that's coming to Dishonored 2 is going to recapture some of those refunders, and of course, the huge discount being offered on Steam today. Here's hoping that a lot of the players that gave up the game at launch give it another shot because it's really quite great, and that way we can get a Dishonored 3 at some point down the road. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know your thoughts about Dishonored 2 down below, and if you enjoyed the video, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe here for more of our future content, and you guys have a great day. We'll see you in our next video.